SonicWALL, so I'm actually located just an hour and a half from near Syracuse in New York. My territory includes upstate New York, everything down to Captain's Bridge, Pennsylvania, excluding Philadelphia. I'm not sure why, but we'll go there. Actually, my counterparts goes there. And West Virginia. So that's the area I serve. I generally work on the pre-sale side, so I'll work with customers and partners in terms of designing networks, keeping folks up to date on what's going on with SonicWALL, so new offerings, new firmware for the firewalls, and what we're able to do through the systems. I've been with SonicWALL for a little bit over 5 years now. I was a customer of SonicWALL for 7 years prior to that. Ran a lab for Network Computing Magazine and was the senior technology editor for that publication. We use SonicWALL firewalls as well as the global management system in order to be able to connect up all the labs together. We have 4 labs in the US, and also to allow each of the technology editors secure access into the labs. So that was my initial experience with SonicWALL. I was a happy customer and a happy employee. You guys seen the news that Dell has offered to buy us. So about 40 to 60 days or so that deal should be complete. So we'll be the security part of Dell computer offerings. We'll still maintain the SonicWALL name, I suspect. And based on their history with previous acquisitions, it's pretty much a hands-off thing. They buy the company to round out their portfolio, and so SonicWALL will be that solution for Dell computers. Rob Slayton isn't in the room, he's upstairs. What I'm going to offer you is, if you're around and something that I say today tickles your fancy, I'll have a firewall set up upstairs with a big monitor, and I can sit down and talk with you and demo things live up there. I'm not going to do any live demos here. So yeah, every slide in technology has to start off with a trend slide. This is my trend slide. And the 2 things, well, this is basically what we're all aiming for. We're aiming for good security, good performance, great bandwidth utilization, efficiency and manageability, right? I mean, that's what we really want in our jobs. When people come in and say what's going on, we want to be able to tell them. And we don't want them coming in and saying what's going on very often, right? So we want to make sure we've got a plug. But the 2 things that I want to kind of concentrate on a little bit today are these 2 down here, Web 2.0 and mobile devices. Just real quick, a definition of Web 2.0. Basically, Web 2.0 is where your browser is the front end into interactive content somewhere. So it's interactive application access through a browser on your desktop. And that has created a whole bunch of interesting problems for firewall vendors historically. So we'll talk about that. And then mobile devices. So one of the big things that's happening, especially in school districts right now, is a move towards BYOD. You guys aware what that acronym about? It's got an acronym, so it must be important. Just wanted to mention to you that SonicWALL is fully behind the issue of BYOD, not only for local access to networks for folks carrying in their own devices, local secure access, but also for remote access, secure remote access for devices. So it can be anything from a Windows or an Mac desktop to an iOS device to Android phone. We've got an SSL VPN solution for accessing the network remotely. So here's the problem. Vulnerabilities are in the software that everybody uses every day. And these are just some of the headlines that have come out in the last year or so. The reason the vulnerabilities are there is because programmers make mistakes. And it's more than just making mistakes. It's the fact that when you create code and you compile that code and publish it, there's no way possible for you to check every possible use case. And then what happens is that over time, generally folks that want to find vulnerabilities in software find things like buffer overflows, for instance. So there's maybe an input field for inputting some information, and the programmer tested, it all puts it in right properly and goes into the database, everything's fine. But one thing they didn't test is somebody types in 1,000 characters in that input field. Maybe they aren't bounding that input field. This is a pretty simple example, but this happens. So basically what happens is that input field creates a buffer overflow condition within the within the program and creates a hole or a place where a potential hacker can gain access to systems behind the software. This is kind of even more recent. So this is from February 2012. This Microsoft always releases a tech advisory or security advisory on a monthly basis. And this is just one company, 1 month's advisory. And I'm not putting this up here to poke holes at Microsoft. I think they're a great company. I think they do a good job. They're huge. They're in use everywhere. They have a really good software design system set up. A lot of checks and balances. They go through a whole process of code review, including security code review. They do everything that if you look at best practices in code design and development, Microsoft does it. Nevertheless, it's human nature. People make mistakes. These are just some of the violations. And this is actually the SonicWALL response to their security advisory. So what we do is we go through line by line on their security advisories and say what IPS signatures we have built into the firewalls in order to protect organizations. So some organizations have a very strict change management protocol. And just because it's a vulnerability is found, it doesn't mean that they're going to update their OS or update the application that's running on a Windows server, for instance. So they need some protection the day the security vulnerability is discovered. They may not be able to update their system to get that protection from Microsoft. SonicWALL sits in front of them for protects in the meantime. So this is page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. So I mean, it's not a simple thing. It's in every piece of code that you run, every software, every piece of software out there has vulnerabilities. And people say, well, what about Macintosh? Macintosh is good. And we're going to start to see more and more of the vulnerabilities that are in Macintosh because Apple is doing so well. And the reason why I say that you're going to see more and more exploits is because it's a economically driven endeavor. So it's money. And the more of the OS that's out there, the more iOS, the more Mac X or OS X that's out there, the more the hackers are engaging in finding vulnerabilities in order to be able to exploit those vulnerabilities for financial gain. Social networking. So we've all seen the stories over the course of the last couple of years where social networking is pervasive. Everybody uses it. Everybody uses LinkedIn. Everybody uses Facebook. But there are a lot of vulnerabilities. So remember, we're talking about Web 2.0 currently, right? So Web 2.0 is a browser on your machine or on your smartphone accessing interactive content on the web. And because that's an interactive activity between your device and a host somewhere, there's a potential for that host to be able to deliver bad traffic basically to the device. So, these are basically social engineered attacks. The LinkedIn one is one that it was pretty widely reported where above a celebrity profile would be created. They would post some video content that was very appealing. People would want to click on it and see it. But when you clicked on it, it would pop up a thing and say, oh, gee, you don't have the right codec installed. So please click here, install the codec, and then you'll be able to see COD. Install that, and you'll be all right. You can see this video content. And as soon as you installed that, you probably didn't get to see the video content anyway, but what definitely happened was your machine was up. And somebody out there all of a sudden gained control of your computer for whatever it is they wanted to do. And this is a very, very common problem, common in terms of millions and millions and millions of devices are owned around the world. And one of the reasons why they're owned is because there are these huge control centers. It wouldn't just be a single server, but there are control centers set up all over the world. Russian Federation is famous for this in terms of owning computers that can do their bidding. So, great example is a email phone. It gets installed on a workstation that's behind a company firewall. Every day, what it's going to do is it's going to, from inside the firewall, going to contact its control center outside the firewall. Everybody knows that, for the most part, inside the firewall, to outside the firewall, at least port 80 is open, right? So employees can browse. It might be maybe not in some cases, but for the most part, it's pretty open. You might do content filtering on it and say, people aren't allowed to go to pornography or whatever kinds of sites you want to block. But for the most part, because it's originating from the inside and going to a host on the outside, unless you really put up some very serious security policies from inside to outside, they're going to be able to contact the back-end controller and say, hey, do you have any work for me? Firewall is going to say, oh, that's a legitimate conversation. I don't have any problems with control rules. Download to the workstation. Yeah, this is what I want you to do. Go out and deliver these 300,000 spam pieces of spam. So, two things happen. First off, your bandwidth goes to crap, right? Because you got workstations, maybe 10 workstations that are infected. Maybe they're all delivering spam through your edge device, and there's no room left for any legitimate work to be done. The second thing that happens is your company's generally going to get put on a real-time blacklist, and it's a pain in the butt to get off a real-time blacklist because it's seeing spam delivered from your public IP address. You just become a scammer. So good default rule on firewalls, take care of that situation pretty easily. Deny any for port 25, right? You don't want anything going out port 25, and then put in an explicit port 25 allow for your email security. It's even more complicated though. People using Web 2.0, they're active on the internet. They're in a sense inviting disasters based on what kind of security profile they've implemented. But even more fundamental activities can harm us. So legitimate websites are hacked. Parasitic pages are put onto these legitimate pages, and then they're also made very attractive to botnets that go around and search the web, basically pull content in through Google and Bing and all the other serves. It could be a misspelling a minor typo, but it could be a very legitimate search, like this one. So this is a search that was done after the tsunami in Samoa, so 2009, and of the top 5 hits, 4 of them were redirecting users to infected sites. So basically, if you started clicking through these links after doing that search to read the content in there, it would be a very, very simple matter for your machine to become infected. Once again, socially engineered. So you're just out looking for good information. It's a legitimate activity, and all of a sudden you click on the wrong thing, and the computer can be had very quickly. It's surprising how quickly the infection can happen. Much quicker than you're able to reach for the on-off switch. I promise you that. Right. Web searching and fake AV. How many have seen fake AV infections? Yeah. So I got a little test for you here. So you guys, how many are security administrators in here? Edge devices, okay. But many of you. Little test for everybody that's in there. So fake AV mimics the look and feel of legitimate antivirus. Once again, socially engineered. Pops up on your screen and says, hey, you got a problem with the computer, I can fix it. It's really dangerous for you to be using it right now. What end user is going to look at that and say, well, gee, I want you to fix it, right? And they charge for it, and people pay. Antivirus sites, real or fake. Just pops up on your screen and you're going to think, hey, that's a real thing, I can go ahead and run it. What do you think? Real or fake? Fake? This one's real. How about this one? I heard a definite that's fake. Boom antivirus 2010. Antivirus 2009. This first real. It is real. K7 antivirus 7.0. Yeah, you like that one? It's real. Windows Antivirus Pro. No, come on, it's Pro. It's not amateur. It's Pro. It's got to be good, right? No, it's a fake one. So you think about that, think it's like, you have to kind of really look at it and you think, gee, it looks legitimate. It's programmed nicely, there are no misspellings, it's formatted correctly, the whole deal. As IT professionals, you got to look at it twice. Imagine what your end users want when they're looking at this stuff. So this is kind of the key slide here in terms of the fake AV stuff. It's been around. I know of it back in 2009. Anybody know it earlier than 2009? It's been around at least 3 years. And every year they come out with a new variant of it. 16 consecutive days, 1.8 million people redirected to the fake AV web pages. 2% of them paid $50 for the fake AV software. That's $1.8 million that they were able to acquire. I bet they're not paying taxes on it. So let's say it's tax-free. 1.8 million tax-free in half a month, about $110,000 a day. So when I say that this activity is being engaged in for economic reasons, this is exactly what I mean. Okay, it's no longer, back in the 80s and 90s when systems were compromised, it was generally script kiddies. they were seeing if they could get their name in the paper. It's not that easy. I mean, there might still be an occasional frivolity out there, but it really is economically motivated. And it's purely financial gain is the impetus for this. It's very lucrative. Social network, email, and botnets. I'm not going to belabor this too much here. So this is the kind of thing. Let's see. So Facebook password resets, MySpace password resets. With an attachment, you click on the attachment, your ad. And I'm sure that you guys have seen these.
You confirm your bank account, you confirm information on your credit card.
Yeah, looking for information basically. And it looks real. You know, that's what I'm saying about the social engineering aspect of it. Everything looks real. This is an invitation that installs fake AV software and gives you a pop-up. How many haven't seen UPS or FedEx invoices? You know, your package is delayed. Click here, find out why, right? It's got a little attachment. Every day, at least once a week, I see those in my junk box, right? This one actually came in, so if you're using Outlook Express, you got a KB reference here, brief description. You know, one of the things the system professionals might be able to do is look at the URL that's being shown on the screen and say, oh, you know what, it is update.microsoft.com/ and then it's a URI after that. So, you know, this you might be fooled. You might think, well, you know, this did come from Microsoft. They delivered me an email to tell me that I need to upgrade.
Where's that hyperlink actually go to?
So actually goes to, and that, yeah, that's what it is. Okay, actually goes to update.microsoft.com .ilfl1l1.com. So the domain is il1l, whatever it is, .com, right? That's not a Microsoft site. So you hover over this with your mouse, you're going to see the actual URL, but even then, you might miss it. You might say, oh, update.microsoft.com. Okay, I can click. Everybody's in a hurry, right? So security is important. Productivity is important. Not just in the business world. I know I'm at an educational conference. Productivity is important in the educational environment as well. So you want students to be as productive as possible. You want faculty to be as productive as possible. So the question becomes, not only can you secure your network from attacks, but also can you secure your network and increase productivity. Part of productivity when using the internet is making sure you have sufficient bandwidth. You get your legitimate purposes, your legitimate business day-to-day done. There's all kinds of distractions out there. You know, YouTube's a great example. So you click on a YouTube link, right? And it's great, it's fun watching it. But you know, the problem with YouTube is that it lists whole line of other videos you might do. True enough, you are in it. And what started out is just, oh, I'm going to watch this 4-minute video. And you know, an hour later, you're saying, wait a minute, what did I just do? My whole hour's gone.